as the COP26 climate change summit approaches, what can we expect over the course of the meeting, and will anything meaningful actually come out of it? Well, joining me now to discuss that is Tom Burke. He's a former advisor in the Deputy Prime Minister's office and the Foreign Office. Tom, good morning. Thanks a lot for joining us. So are hopes high that something concrete is going to come out of this meeting?
I think something concrete will come out of it. I think we've got quite a lot of momentum beginning to build now, but it's not going to be enough to really tackle the problem to get us where we need to be. But I think there's less risk than people might have thought of the whole piece falling apart. And if that happened, of course, that would be very catastrophic indeed.
Okay, going into Paris, Paris largely succeeded because the Chinese and the Americans had already agreed in advance to targets, didn't it?
Yes, it did. But this is a rather different kind of agreement. In a sense, what Paris did was to establish the global regime for going forward. Now, this is really about how do we take that regime and make it work on delivery purposes. So when we're looking for what to look for out of the COP, the first thing, are we going to deliver on the promises we made in Paris? And in particular, are we going to live in the promise to deliver $100 billion a year in money to the poorer countries? But secondly, are we going to increase our ambition from what is currently in the targets that governments have put together? And we need to get rather more just to keep the idea of well below 2 and 1.5 if possible alive. And then it's quite clear from the way the science has changed and the way events are now appearing on our screens all the time, is that we've got to accelerate the pace at which we do things. And so quite important, therefore, to look for any sign that instead of meeting, as it were, to review progress every 5 years, we think about meeting every couple of years to review progress, so that as the urgency grows, so the response can grow.
And so going into this, what are the countries who are going to be there saying?
195 countries.
Okay, well then let me ask you this. If the Chinese are not going to be there, if Xi is not going to be there, what's the point?
Well, I think one can make a bit much out of the fact that Xi is not going to turn up in person. It's not yet clear that he won't actually deliver, as he did to a COP of his own on biodiversity in China, where he delivered a video message. He hasn't left the country for 2 years. So I'm not sure you should read too much into the fact that Xi won't be there. The countries that have got to do more are, however, China, India, the so-called, as it were, BRIC countries, Indonesia, South Africa. There are a bunch of countries that are the middle emerging countries, if you like, not the poorest countries, but the economies that are on the verge of becoming developed country economies that have really got to do more. And they're the ones that are most coal dependent.
What about this issue of funding? You said it's a big, big issue, and that's the key thing. What are people saying going into that? Do you think they're actually going to come up with this cash?
I think we were, the last time we heard any announcements about it, we were getting very close. So my guess, but it is only a guess at this stage, is we'll get over the line. But that really is a minimum requirement. I mean, that's not going to build confidence. And one of the issues in the background of this is the fact that we have to be doing something that's fair for everybody. And because climate change is now a major global issue of security and prosperity, you can't separate it from other issues. So are we also doing enough to help cover the countries whose economies have been damaged by COVID? Are we doing enough to help them recovery, particularly green recovery? Are we doing enough on vaccinations so that people feel that, in a sense, we're all in this together and we're all trying together, and we're clearly not doing enough on vaccinations?
That's interesting. You think the vaccination topic and vaccine equity is going to play a part in COP26?
Yes, I do. And I think in terms of the mood, and remember, when leaders come together, the real advantage of having leaders come together is that the personal dynamics can make a real difference. But people don't just come with a briefing on climate change to these issues. They come with all the other things that are on their minds. And what's happened, and we've seen it very clearly in the last 2 years, is climate change has graduated from being an environmental issue, a kind of nice to have, to being a central issue of prosperity and security. And that means it connects to all the other issues that are on people's minds, the big geopolitical issues. And so you can't just think you can make progress on the one issue without somehow making progress on other issues.
And just finally, going into this, everyone has said if the UK is hosting it, the UK has to appear as a leader in climate change. We have seen policy coming into this. Do you think that domestically we have shown ourselves to be a leader?
Well, I think we've shown ourselves in the past very definitely to be a leader with Climate Change Act, the actual progress we've made in decarbonising our own economy. I'm not sure that the Prime Minister has taken full advantage of that in terms of the way in which, as you've seen, lots of conflict within our own government about how much effort we should put in, what sort of political price we're prepared to pay in order to make progress. And because the host is very important at these meetings, the fact that we're not walking the talk as well as we could be walking the talk, I think is not a good sign.
Okay. Well, Tom, we've got just over 7 days to go. It's exciting. Let's see what happens. Tom, thanks a lot.
Thank you.